Today on Fear and Greed, the head of the Reserve Bank and the boss of the National Australia Bank warn about a Trump administration. The Chemist Warehouse $29 billion merger with Sigma Pharmaceutical gets ACCC approval, and the federal government is pushing to ban social media for anyone under 16 years of age. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It's Friday, the 8th of November 2024. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Adam.
Sean, the main story this morning in what has been a massive week, the head of the Reserve Bank and the boss of National Australia Bank have warned of trade wars hurting Australia's growth as a result of the election of Donald Trump as the next US president.
National Australia Bank Chief Executive Andrew Irvine talked about adverse effects on the local economy from tariffs emanating from a trade war between the US and China. Donald Trump, of course, has suggested he might put 60% tariffs on Chinese imports and up to 20% tariffs on other imports, including from Australia. Australia exports about $22 billion worth of goods to the US. Beef, gold and pharmaceutical products are among some of the larger exports that we have with them. Andrew Irvine also warned of higher for longer inflation and higher US interest rates. Bond markets have already priced that in. He expects to see tax cuts and a reduction in red tape. That should be good for economic growth in the US. Now, the Reserve Bank Governor, Michelle Bullock, said her initial feeling is that a 10% tariff on all trading partners won't have too much impact. However, if Donald Trump does more than that, then it is more likely to hit the local economy. She didn't really have a view on what it means for interest rates. The Reserve Bank Assistant Governor, Chris Kent, he said large tariffs on China may have an adverse effect on Australia. General agreement, I would say, Adam, no one fully knows what a Trump government means for trade wars and Australia.
Sean, apart from that very sincere watching brief, what's the latest on the US election counting and what has the response been?
So yesterday morning, Australian time, Kamala Harris conceded defeat, but said she would never give up the fight for democracy. Republicans have won the White House, they've won the Senate, the House of Reps is still up for grabs. That's very important because Congress can block some of Trump's plans, but not all of them. For example, if he wants to lower the corporate tax rate, he has to get that through Congress, which is the House of Reps and the Senate. Hence, if you have the Democrats with the balance of power in the House of Reps, much harder for him to do that. There are other things like increased tariffs. Well, he basically has presidential powers to do that. So that fight for the House of Reps is very important. Donald Trump's also on track to win the popular vote when all votes are counted. He's likely to win about 312 electoral college votes to Harris's 226, according to the New York Times. Trump won white working class votes, which used to be Democratic territory. He also made gains in suburbs and cities and with black and Latino voters.
Sean, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was on the phone very quickly, calling President-elect Trump to congratulate him.
Yes, not surprising. I mean, the US is Australia's closest military ally. We have the AUKUS deal worth tens of billions of dollars running around, so we certainly want to be on side with whoever is in the White House. Mr. Albanese said the two spoke about the importance of the alliance and the relationship's strength in security, AUKUS, trade and investment. He also refused to apologise for disparaging remarks that he made about Mr. Trump in 2017. Said Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, had his full support. Now, remember, Rudd previously called Trump the most destructive president in history. He's been scampering ever since.
And Sean, financial markets really liked the result.
Sure did. The major equity indices on Wall Street all hit record highs yesterday. A lower corporate tax rate and less regulation, both Trump promises, does wonders for the bottom line. In fact, yesterday was the largest election day rally in history, with the S&P 500 up about 2.5%. Tesla's share price jumped 15% to its highest level in 2 years. Elon Musk, a very big supporter of Donald Trump. The banks also did well. US bond yields surged. That's on that higher rates for longer theme. That helped the US dollar jump. The Aussie dollar at 66 US cents has actually done pretty well. Hasn't been sold off too much. Bitcoin hit a new high of above 76,000 US dollars a unit. Now, Donald Trump, he wants the US to be the crypto capital of the planet, is how he put it. He also talked about something called a strategic reserve of cryptos, whatever that actually means. Gold prices tumbled more than 5%. Local investors weren't quite as enamored with the result. The S&P ASX 200 actually started down yesterday. It finished up a bit, 0.3% to 8,226 points. Adam, real estate investment trusts were hardest hit, as were the gold stocks.
Sean, immediately after the show, we want everyone to stay listening for your chat with Michael McCarthy from Moomoo.
That's right. All about the industry value chain. So it's the idea that you can buy a stock in a mega trend or in a trend area like NVIDIA and microchips, for example. So you can get into that trend without having to buy NVIDIA. Basically, if you go up and down the value chain, there may be other opportunities. It's a great chat about finding opportunities to invest in some of these mega trends.
We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, National Australia Bank has reported an 8% drop in annual cash profit to $7.1 billion and said Australian borrowers have entered the toughest part of the economic cycle.
The result was pretty much as expected. The dividend was a touch higher. The share price fell quite sharply before recovering somewhat to end about flat. Arrears, now that's loan arrears whereby repayments aren't keeping up. Well, they jumped to their highest point since 2020. That was probably the thing that people didn't like about the result yesterday. CEO Andrew Irvine said there were more bad loans as businesses and consumers grapple with higher interest rates. NAB actually stepped back from the mortgage wars in the last 12 months or so. It got very competitive rather than lose margin. National Australia Bank decided to step back from it. The Consumer Bank suffered as a result. Mr. Irvine said that competition in the mortgage market isn't as fierce as it was previously, so they are back growing at about the market rate. NAB's net interest margin, difference between what it pays on deposits and receives on loans, was down 3 basis points. Adam?
Sean, Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock was in front of Senate estimates yesterday. Apart from her comments on the US election, what else did she have to say?
Well, she said that real incomes should recover in the months ahead. Wages growth should outpace inflation, and that should help people. She also talked about inflation causing the cost of living crisis, nothing else. Of course, the inference there meaning you really have to defeat inflation if you want to get things back on track. The government is aware, she said, that fiscal and monetary policies have to work together. Of course, there's been a lot of criticism about governments spending too much, hence making the Reserve Bank's job harder. She said the government, and she was talking about the federal government, seems to have the right attitude at the moment. So I suppose in a veiled way, a tick of approval for the government from Michelle Bullock.
Sean, the competition regulator has given the go-ahead to the merger of Chemist Warehouse and Sigma Pharmaceutical.
Yes, this is a big one. It's a very, very big step towards creating a $29 billion share market giant. That's bigger than Coles, for example. It means Sigma, the pharmacy wholesaler and retailer, will merge with the number one retailer, Chemist Warehouse. Sigma has had to make concessions. It's provided an exit path for franchisees in the network. There's also a restriction on the use of data. Anyway, this deal looks like it's going to get the go-ahead. Sigma's share price yesterday was up 24%.
Sean, just to add to the mix, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will consult with the National Cabinet today about banning social media for children under the age of 16.
Please they don't have anyone under the age of 16 anymore, because I reckon this will be a very, very hard one to implement. Anyway, the e-safety commissioner, she will oversee the ban. That'll be her job. The Prime Minister wants social media companies to enforce the ban. He agrees that the policy won't get a 100% outcome. But he's not keen on exemptions based on parental consent either. Basically, under 16-year-olds won't be able to hold an account. We're talking Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, all those ones you have, Adam. Social media companies, parents and children could face penalties if they don't comply.
Sean, you've mentioned how the local market did yesterday. There were also plenty of profit updates, including Westfield operator Centre, which reaffirmed its earnings guidance.
Yes, so sales in malls came in at about $49 billion for the year ended September, occupancy of 99.4%. Whatever happened to the COVID days? Remember that? Shops are closing down. Malls are doing really well. Health insurer NAB posted a mixed start to the new financial year. Premium revenues in its Australian residents' health insurance unit are much higher, but so are costs of medical and allied treatments and services. And buy now, pay later group Zipco, it announced a big jump in cash earnings for the September quarter. This is the company that's up 660% over the last year.
Incredible. And Sean, we are well and truly in AGM season. Seven West Chair Kerry Stokes came out fighting yesterday.
Yep, he had a crack at overseas-based streaming platforms for not paying taxes and had a go at the government for setting what he called unnecessary roadblocks. Seven West trading update suggested a drop in profit this half year, but its share price closed up a bit. Nine Entertainment's share price fell 1% after it provided a trading update. Basically, the first quarter revenue was higher thanks to the Olympics, but conditions remain tough. The second quarter earnings expected to be lower again. That came as that group's biggest radio personality, Ray Hadley, a good friend of yours, Adam, said he was quitting his show on 2GB and 4BC after, I think it's almost 40 years in the game, 20 years of rating wins, like 160 surveys in a row. Phenomenal. The other one, Bendigo Bank, it had its AGM. The message, prioritise digital transformation, but keep branches open.
Yeah, congratulations, Ray Hadley, on an immense career. But Sean, back to the report. The corporate regulator has confirmed it has commenced a formal investigation into MinRes amid the scandal surrounding the ASX-listed miners boss, Chris Ellison.
MinRes, Adam, you're sounding like me. Mineral Resources. I'm very impressed. Anyway, appearing before a Senate Estimates Committee yesterday, ASIC Deputy Chair Sarah Court said the regulator had now opened a formal probe into the company, but noted investigations remained at a very early stage. She told Parliament ASIC was examining some allegations and had engaged with the ATO after the tax office cut a peace deal with Mr Ellison over millions of dollars in unpaid taxes.
Sean, moving into international news, the global temperature rise is expected to hit an average of 1.55 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels this year, making it virtually certain to be the warmest on record.
The latest data from the European Union Earth Observation Agency, reported in the Financial Times, says the forecast rise this year compares with a climb of 1.48 degrees Celsius in 2023, and it breaches the ideal goal of more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's enshrined in the Paris Climate Agreement. Last month was the second warmest October on record and the 15th in a 16-month period for which the global average exceeded 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The average sea surface temperature hit 20.68 degrees Celsius, the second highest value on record for October. It comes ahead of next week's UN COP29 summit. And of course, as global leaders ponder what a Trump administration means for the climate change world.
Sean, on this one, the trend is not our friend. Staying with the US, it isn't the only major economy in election mode.
Certainly isn't. Germany's coalition government has pretty much collapsed after Chancellor Olaf Scholz sacked his finance minister. Mr. Scholz expects to lose a confidence vote, though that's not going to be held till January 15. What I was reading saying that means a snap election in March. Well, given we're in November, I don't reckon it's a snap poll when it's not going to happen until March. Anyway, if you want to know what a snap poll's about, go to Ireland, because its 38-year-old Prime Minister Simon Harris has called an election for 29 November, 3 weeks. That's what I call a snap poll. He's seeking a record fourth term for his Conservative Fine Gael party.
Sean, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with Michael McCarthy from Moomoo. Also, remember, another edition of Ask Fear and Greed is out at noon today.
Yeah, it sure is. And this question, it did come in a couple of weeks ago, but it's very relevant. It's, what does a Trump presidency mean for the Australian economy? So we attack that one at noon today.
Yeah, plenty in that one, Sean. That's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your favourite podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam.
It's Friday, the 8th of November, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook, and have a great day.